Yes, it's What a Boast, a celebration of Reeves and Mortimer. Please welcome your hosts for this podcast, MJ Price and Paula Wiseman.
Hello and welcome to Quite a Boast, a podcast dedicated to the work and genius of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. My name is Matt Price, founder of the Reeves and Mortimer Depository of Curious Stuff Facebook group.
And I am Paula Wiseman, founder and creator of the Divine Comedians podcast.
Today's guest has been a director of funny television programmes for the best part of 30 years. It might be easier for me to list the comedy shows that he hasn't had a hand in, but that would be just silly. So instead, those which he has been involved with include The Armstrong and Miller Show, Human Remains, Saxondale, Little Britain, Psychoville, Man Down, Upstart Crow, Inside No.9, Ted Lasso, and the TV adaptations of several of David Walliams' books. He is also the man who helped bring Inspector John Fowler, Chris and Carl Palmer, and the staff of the Mermaid Hotel to the screen in Jim and Bob's fan favourite Catterick. And please enter the Novelty Island paddock, Matt Lipsey.
Hey!
Hello, Matt.
Thank you.
Hey, Matt.
Very happy to be here.
You've done a lot. You've done a lot of stuff, Matt.
I have, but then I'm very old, so I've had a lot of time.
But you've done a lot of quality stuff, Matt. That's the difference.
Indeed.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I've been incredibly lucky as well. Just good things have come my way, and then I suppose, yes, as you make a bit of a name for yourself, you hope the good things keep coming. I've had a lot of fun along the way.
So when you started out, Matt, as a youngster, were you before you started in the industry, were you a comedy fan growing up? Was that your thing?
I was, but not specifically. And it's taken me quite a while to kind of work out the route as to how I ended up in comedy, because it was certainly not a game plan. And to condense it into the short story, what I put it down to is initially my absolute love of cartoons, and what were very specifically at the time Warner Brother cartoons, and even more specifically Tex Avery directed Warner Brother cartoons.
Yeah.
And I realized, having gone back through, the kind of back catalogue, that those were the ones that just absolutely stood out for me. And they sang. I don't think there's been an animator that tells a gag in quite the same way. Quite extraordinary. And I used to go and see cartoons on a reel. Back in the day, there was a flea pit cinema in Piccadilly Circus. And we would come up as a family to go to the dentist. My mum, for some reason, had a dentist in town, and the treat afterwards would be to go and watch the daytime newsreel / cartoon reel that would go until in the evening it turned into a sex cinema, as far as I could work out. So kind of hilarious. But yeah, it was that where I kind of really developed a love of cartoons, and I think that's where it sowed all its seeds.
So, like, what was the dream? What was the goal? I mean, obviously, like, career aspirations. Was this something that you always wanted to do?
I went. It took me ages to realize that actually being a director was a career. Just one of those things that just never connected. It never computed. I think you'll agree with me that it was nothing that the career advice officer at school ever came up with. It's just it wasn't an option that you would bump into at school. I was that geek whose dad had a Super 8 camera, though, and so I used to make Super 8 films a lot. But again, never connected it. Then I went to art school, and I was convinced I was going to be doing a foundation year. I ended up doing 2 foundation years, thinking I was going to be a sculptor, which I think I genuinely would have loved doing. But what I realized was, at the same time as doing an extracurricular film club course, and kind of delving a little bit more into what the life of a sculptor might be, I just realized I'm a collaborator. I am a born collaborator. And that the isolation, or potential isolation anyway, of being a fine artist was not really going to suit my way of working, or my way of wanting to work. And at the same time, I was doing this film club, and it was then that I kind of put the pieces together. Dropped out, took a year off, got a job assisting a documentary filmmaker fresh out of the Royal College of Art, and then applied at that time to what was the London College of Printing, then became the London College of, as it is now, London College of Communication, and did a film course. Again, it wasn't comedy though. Still didn't think it was going to be comedy.
Well, the thing, how did that first step happen? How did the comedy thing actually happen initially?
It's a really good question. Basically, I came out of film school because I had a lot of musical connections. I was playing in bands a lot throughout the late 70s, early 80s. And I got into making pop promos as I was at film school. And I came out and got a gig doing pop promos as a subsidiary of what was a company called Limelight, Steve Barron's company. And then from there, I just fell into a music television job for what was British satellite broadcasting before they became Sky, doing a music clip show, producer, director of. That was a bit like buying a ticket to the Titanic. Yes, there was then the hostile takeover from Rupert Murdoch.
Oh yeah,
and the iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely. He was one hell of an iceberg, and the whole shit went down, taking us all with it. But I got a kind of a strange gig off the back of that, which was to do a kind of music / arts video accompaniment to a CD compilation that a German company was putting out of what was kind of early acid house / trip hop music of the early 90s. And so I made this documentary, and one of my friends who I'd been working on the music channel came to see it, and he sort of sidled up to me afterwards. He said, "I hope you don't mind, but that was me sniggering all the way through." And then I wondered who that was. He said, "Yeah, that was fucking hilarious." And of course, it wasn't going to be, but a lot of these people in the underground music and art scene were taking themselves very, very seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And it's true to say that a lot of them were up their own rectal passages. And it was quite funny. He just pitched to me this idea of, what about doing our own version of the Monkees, where we kind of put a band together but set it in the rave scene, which it was right in the middle of the rave scene. And I just thought, it's a genius idea. That's fantastic. So we tried to raise some money. We found a woman, brilliant woman who I owe so much debt to this very day. A woman called Gillian Gordon, who was working for a production company. She managed to get us a bit of backing from what was Anglia Television back in the day. And we did a teaser, not even a pilot, but a teaser. But in order to do that, we had to cast it. And in the casting process, I met Ben Miller. Ben Miller then said, "Look, you really should meet my partner, my writing partner, comedy partner, Xander Armstrong." I said, "Well, great, let's get him in." Got him in. He was brilliant. And so we cast him. We also cast Dougray Scott, a young Dougray Scott, as a lead singer of this band. Neil Morrissey in the early days of. And we put this band together and put this scene together. But the main thing that came out of it was Armstrong and Miller, who they then saw the teaser and said, "Look, would you be interested in helping us to maybe try and get our own sketch show off the ground?" Wow. They were one of the few people, along with the League of Gentlemen back in the day, who were doing sketches on stage. It was basically very much out of fashion. Yeah, sketch comedy comes in and out of fashion over the years. I think at the time only Hale and Pace was the sketch show that was going. So we again raised a little bit of money to do a teaser. Oh, first of all, I should tell you this: they weren't gigging. So I said, "Look, I don't know your work. How am I going to see it?" Ben said, "Come over to my place." So I went to his flat, and he and Xander did their whole repertoire for me in the kitchen. And now people talk about epiphanies, but that was my epiphany. And it really was genuinely my epiphany. I saw my future. This is the funniest material I've ever seen. I was crying with laughter. I went, "I'm in 100%, hook, line, sinker. I'm yours." So yeah, we did the teaser. The teaser led to a weird thing with what was then fledgling Paramount, bizarrely. who were basically doing little comedy interstitials between their movies, basically because they didn't have enough advertising at that point in time, so they had gaps between their programs, and they were filling them with comedy shorts, of which Edgar Wright was doing a lot with Matt Lucas, David Williams. Some great stuff that came out of that. So anyway, blah blah blah. I fall into comedy, literally fall into comedy out of almost nowhere.
So that's early 90s, the same time Vic and Bob were coming on the scene. Do you remember discovering them as a viewer? Were you a fan before you worked with them?
I remember it vividly because I watched the first episode of the Big Night Out. Was it Big Night Out? Was the first?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah,
Channel 4, 1990.
Exactly. And just it left me cold. I genuinely just did not get it. I don't understand this. And then I remember going out for a drink with a group of friends, and then we were going back to one of their house, and he put it on and said, "You got to see the show. It's brilliant." And I'm like, "Yeah, well." And I don't know whether it was watching it with friends or exactly what it was, but the second one clicked, and it clicked in such a way that it was just like, both barrels in the face. I absolutely got it, and from there on in, I just go, this is extraordinary. And it was pretty palpably obvious that this was going to do what Python had done all those years ago and change the face of comedy. And it absolutely did. They are, I don't know how to put it, they're just our heroes for what they did and what they brought to comedy. They're just utter flipping geniuses.
I don't know. It's like you get these heroes of a generation, don't you? Like the Goons, and then the Pythons, and then Vic and Bob. And we spoke to there's so many people that cite Vic and Bob as their touchstone.
Yes, no, absolutely extraordinary. And yeah, before that, I suppose it probably would have been Python. But I mean, I was only, I don't know, 6 or 7 when the Pythons were out. I'm not even sure if I was allowed to watch it back in the day, but they were the thing kind of growing up that were kind of outstanding in that way of just, as I say, I suppose just really looking at comedy square in the face and going, no, we're not doing it that way. We're doing it this way. Yeah. Even if there is a lineage, even if I never spoke to Vic and Bob about this at all, as in, who were their heroes, comedically. So I don't know, how much they would, proffer allegiance to those pioneers before them. It kind of doesn't matter. It's not really the point. What they did, whether it's synthesizing what had come before or just being utterly and completely fresh, and so much of it was clearly shooting from the hip. What they did just blew a hole in everything.
It's interesting you say, well, Matt Lucas told us exactly the same thing. It's quite a famous story. He saw the first episode of The Big Night Out and didn't just leave him cold. He actually complained to Channel 4 about this show.
He did, didn't he? That's
right.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. He was that famous person.
Yeah, and then by the second show, he was like, oh, okay. Right, that's it. Yeah, and of course, he ended up working with him several times.
Absolutely.
Including on Catterick. Would that been the first? Because Catterick, and I know you worked on Monkey Trousers as well, which is about the same sort of time. Which was recorded first, was it?
Catterick first. That was my introduction to them. So I met Vic and Bob at the Groucho Club in order to discuss this very show. And of course, we didn't really discuss the show at all. We talked about a lot of things. I didn't realize, but it was my initiation. I clearly said some of the right things. I think from memory, Vic was there first, and we were talking a lot about cars, which he does love. And we're talking about soul music, and I think I referenced enough of the right people there. He being a huge fan. Obviously, I think number 1 Otis Redding, and then Bob shuffles in with a carrier bag of tinnies. I believe it's Skull Lager was his favorite. We're in the Groucho Club, so he kind of pulls out tinnies and is popping them on the table in the corner. yeah, from that I got involved in Catterick first.
I mean, how obviously you've directed many scripts from lots of different writers, but famously in the sketch show days, like Smell of Reeves Mortimer and Bang Bang, the scripts used to just be peppered with lots of Jim's drawings of props and costumes, and it was left for the production team scratching their head to try and work out what exactly they wanted to see on screen. Did you have similar battles with a Catterick script, or was it pretty straightforward?
No, the script was the most interesting thing because it had been a few different things. It had gone through quite a few different incarnations, including being a feature script. And that may have been, I was trying to remember before I came to you guys, what state the script was in when I saw it. I think it might have been like a 3-part or something, but it certainly wasn't a 6 half-hour comedy series. And so that was the challenge. And that challenge that I took on along with Channel X, who were producing it, to take what we had. And I mean, we did that old-fashioned thing of kind of putting all the scenes down onto cue cards and then rearranging them and shuffling them about and just trying to shape it all. We didn't, obviously, we're not the writers. We didn't rewrite anything. We just rearranged it and reorganized it and shaped it. But that was the first time I'd ever done that. And it was such an important part of the process because I was just immersing myself in it, fully immersing myself. And we had a few meetings with the boys, and they were happy, I think, mostly with what was going on, how I was doing it. They got involved a little bit, but not too much. So they were basically okay with the reshaping we were doing. And then to your question about beyond that, the kind of the look and the feel, they did have lots of ideas, but I don't think we were too much in the way. Well, let me put it this way: we were not inundated, and they were. I found this to be incredibly collaborative, particularly Jim, who was not being precious at all about anything, and was very open to ideas. He had clear ideas about his characters for sure. The funniest thing was with Bob, who basically just didn't want to be in it. It's just, as I think you probably well know, famously just hates being on screen and has to be dragged kicking and screaming in front of the camera, which was, another story, but hilarious.
Well, I think Bob has said, obviously they've done the sketch show stuff, which is still acting, but that Randall and Hopkirk experience was pretty tough for him, having to do straight acting, for want of a better word, with some proper professional stage actors in that as well. And I think he felt a bit of inferiority complex, imposter syndrome.
Yes.
But I think he's great in Catterick as Chris.
I think it's perfect because
Carl. Is he Chris or Carl? I forget which is which. He's Carl.
The other way around, yeah. But it is perfect because they've written the characters for themselves, so he kind of he knew how to play it, and the part was written, so kind of he's such a sort of gentle and unprepossessing character. It kind of fit perfectly to his kind of camera shy reality, and he still wasn't terribly happy to be in front of the camera, but he got more and more into it as we went, and he loved the musical numbers, doing those, and as you say, probably the bits that were more sketchy he would enjoy. I'd say sketchy in the loose sense, the sketch comedy sketchy. So yeah, I think that was fun. Vic just throws himself into everything. He absolutely loves it. And exactly that. Exactly. But I think that's such a huge part of it. It's a good way to describe him.
So we talk about the casting of some amazing actors in that. Were the other main characters, or did Jim and Bob have an idea who they wanted to play those roles, or were you involved in the casting?
No, we were all involved in the casting. Some of the actors that I had worked with before, like Mark Benton, but then with Reese, we had not yet worked together, and that was fantastic because I got to meet him, and we kind of swapped some stories about our adventures in sketch comedy prior to. But what was wonderful was just how starstruck Reese was as well. just, I remember him sort of taking me to one side and going, "We're working with Vic and Bob. This is amazing." Saying essentially what we've been saying. They've changed the face of comedy, and he was properly excited by it all in such a good way, as I was. But it was quite heartwarming, really, just seeing that reaction from him. But no, it was casting was a pretty open process. I think Charlie was a shoo-in. Charlie got the gig because he's great mates with them. Morwenna I'd worked with before, particularly because Armstrong and Miller was done with her company, absolutely, from back in the day. And I'd been a huge fan of their sketch show prior to that. And had done a lot of work, interestingly, as a spin-off from the show with John Sparks, who had come up with a character, Barry Welsh. And we were doing...
What a legend of a man.
I know. And
he's so talented. So talented.
Unbelievable. I think the first character that I was aware of he'd done was Shadwell, who I absolutely adored. But then, just getting to work with him, we were making the show out of HTV as it was back then. Barry Welsh is coming.
He was quite filthy at times.
Well, it was his favourite. Yes. It was a gardener, gardening character called an Iron Anus, and the show was called Around the Back. Around the Back with an Iron Anus. So, pure filth from beginning to end.
And who would have thought he'd go on to narrate Peppa Pig?
I know, right? Yeah.
The ultimate irony.
So Morwenna, Tim Healy, superb,
fabulous. Tim was really interesting to work with. Coming from a quite a different background, certainly not kind of pure comedy in that way. I think it took him a while to get into the groove of the way that Jim and Bob like to work, but I love what he did. I love it so much.
But Mark Benton in Catterick, just the garden centre obviously is the thing that most people think of, the garden centre.
That was, as you can imagine, it was incredibly complicated to work out. An awful lot of choreography. So the actual filming of it was tricky, and I'm trying to remember. We had some stipulations with the place on it. I think we couldn't afford for it to shut down completely, so we had it for sections of over a couple of days. But it was done on a shoestring, as the whole show was. But again, just such a laugh. I mean, there are some comedies that are just, they're a laugh, but they're more a job, and you get the job done. But this was it was just funny from beginning to end, and it never stopped being enjoyable. I think for that reason. But the garden centre, I think, was probably, I didn't storyboard it, but it was the closest to storyboard. I probably did some thumbnail sketches, but I had broken it down really, really carefully into all its constituent parts. And then, of course, time runs out and it turns into a complete free-for-all. Everything goes out the window. You chuck the shot list out and just kind of make it up as you go along to an extent. But yeah, I think probably the most fun to shoot of all the sequences. Although, having said that, the caravan was pretty bloody good fun too.
It seems like there was a lot of corpsing, a lot of, messing about during the recording.
Yes. Well, obviously, famously, Mark Wickershit.
The Wickershit, yeah.
Which, of course, is available to everyone online, should you care to look it up. You tell me, I can't remember. Was it 13 takes? Was it more? It was an enormous number.
He was talking about people kept having to leave the room. He told Bob to leave because Bob was making him laugh. And
well, do you know what? To the best of my memory, it got really, really silly to the point where we ended up finally getting the take where there was nobody in the room at all. we just let the camera run because there's a locked off shot. We let the camera run, and we're outside looking on the monitor, and he gets in. There's a big cry goes up from outside. You
Thank
can
God.
hear it on the rushes. There's Ray, he's got it. It was. I mean, the tricky thing with those is that because when they're corpsing, and again, because we were having so much fun and we were enjoying it, we're all enjoying each other. That corpsing, you can go with it, you can roll with it. But obviously, there comes a point when you go, yeah, but we're running out of time now.
Yeah.
There's a kind of pressure to it. But if you try and apply that pressure to the actor who's corpsing, it only makes it worse.
Makes it worse, yeah.
Because, that's, as I'm saying, corpsing is often, it wasn't in this instance, but it is often a lot to do with nerves. But Mark wasn't nervous about anything. It was nothing to be nervous about. It's just that the line actually made him piss himself.
Yeah.
Those fake teeth as well probably didn't help matters.
They're fantastic. Yeah. and the whole idea of that, I'd love to be able to remember where the idea for that costume came from. It just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But then, there are so many things in the show, that are, but that's the joy of Reeves and Mortimer, this to me, I honestly feel that Catterick was the perfect distillation of everything that they've been working towards. For me personally, I'm more proud of that than anything else I've done. That I made that show. I would call that my opus. That was it.
Wow.
And I would, happily say to anyone, if I were to die tomorrow, yeah, but I made Catterick. I mean, I'm very proud of the other shows as well, but Catterick is just so special.
That's on your gravestone.
Yeah, I think so. I made Catterick.
Yeah. But it's great because you say you got Jim and Bob's ridiculously in it in the best way possible, but the plot is it is a coherent plot and it is tense.
Yeah.
At times you've got these insane characters like Matt Lucas's cat. Roy Oates is just
Yes.
How do you describe what that person is?
Shellfishy shit. Shellfishy
Oh
shit.
yeah. But yeah, it makes sense over 6 episodes. I mean, and with someone else at the helm, maybe it would have fell apart on Vicar, but it would have just gone haywire. But it works.
Well, I hope so. I think that, as I say, that had a lot to do with myself and Alan from Channel X just having been able to spend a lot of time with the structure of the script early on, because I think the structure was the most important thing that we got right about it.
Yeah.
Because without that, I think it could have just meandered and lost its way. That, and I think casting Reese as well, who is just such a brilliant, malevolent force, does bring real proper jeopardy to it. So, as you say, it's got drama in there where it needs to have, as ridiculous as it might be. It kind of gives it a grounding within its own bizarre world.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a chameleon, though, isn't he, as well, Reese?
Yes.
You just the vast array of stuff that he's kind of put his hand to over the years. It's just.
Well, it's actually, I'd say for he and Steve now, you could probably say it's unprecedented. I don't believe there's a couple of comedic actors out there who have done as many characters now as they have, over 9 series of Inside No.9, just off the bat. But then, if you took their sketch show alone, there's already a vast array of brilliant characters. But they both have that wonderful chameleon quality, whilst just always making the characters just grounded and real, and it's a fine art, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, even the grotesquerie, I suppose, of the League. When you look at some of the stuff they did in the League series.
It's a very good point. I think what for me, what was interesting was watching how, the League became less and less overtly funny as it went along, and in a way more kind of dramatic and grotesque. As I think it felt like they were just egging each other on in that way, and it got darker and darker.
Oh yeah.
No, I don't mean that in a bad way. That was just their journey. But yeah, very again amazing talent, and in their own way, they had a lot to do with. And what was really interesting when we'd made the first series of Armstrong and Miller. I think it was Mark Gatiss came to one of the screenings, and he was basically thanking Armstrong and Miller. He said, if it wasn't for your show coming along, we may have ended up doing a much more straightforward, anodyne sketch show. He said, we felt we had to do something different because you were already doing that. It's pretty wonderful.
Obviously, something that was a lot more light-hearted, should we say, without a dark side at all, was Monkey Trousers.
Yes.
Which came along. I suppose there were some dark characters in there when you think about it. But how did that come about? So obviously you worked with Vic and Bob and you worked with Steve Coogan before.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and they just decided, well, I think it was originally called the All-Star Comedy Show. And they liked this idea of just bringing in as many of the people that they loved from the world of comedy together. And in some instances, like Jane Horrocks, who just came along to do, I think, just the one character in the end. There was a sort of a disparate collection of both talent and number of characters and appearances, and so it was quite a loose arrangement. But that was effectively the pilot, which is what I shot for what became Monkey Trousers, which was again, it's one of probably about 4 times that I sort of come out of sketch comedy retirement. I kept sort of after Armstrong and Miller, I sort of said, I don't want to do that again. That's it. Yeah. It's hard work, great fun, but and what I've come to recognize now is I think sketch comedy is probably the hardest, and that I would include that in across genres, drama included. It's incredibly difficult and draining. So yeah, that was kind of coming back out of comedy retirement. And then of course there was more famously Matt and David doing Little Britain, and I think previous to that was Lenny Henry, came out of retirement for that as well. I couldn't get away from sketch
like
comedy.
A yo-yo.
Yes, keeps coming back.
Well, at the minute, I don't think there is a sketch show on TV on any platform apart from online.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. It's funny, isn't it? It just goes in and out of fashion, and it has done, ever since I can remember. But yeah, it's practic. Well, right now you're right. It's dead in the water. There's literally nothing. Yeah, apart from obviously the sketches that you can see online. Plenty of people doing their own thing there. But in terms of broadcasters, I'm not sure if that's true right across the board in terms of streamers.
There's some US ones, and the only thing I can think of in this country is a kids one, which is horrible histories.
Yes,
but I don't think your Saturday night sketch show. If someone comes out and introduces a sketch like Lenny Henry would have done, and a musical number and whatnot, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, like you mentioned Hale and Pace earlier. Saturday night.
Well, I was more of a fan of Hale and Pace than a lot of people. They just weren't fashionable.
I love their stuff.
I thought they were really very talented, and I got to work with them. I did again. Was that the 5th time out of sketch retirement? I did. I did
more than you think, Matt.
Something called the Millennium Sketch Show, which we did for the turn of the millennium. We did 2, one for Christmas Day and one for New Year's Day, I think. And that was basically anyone and everyone who worked for the BBC comedically that we could wrangle together, which, so there were sketches that had Steve Coogan and Ronnie Corbett in.
Is that with Vic and Bob did the Scott of the Antarctic sketch?
That's right. Exactly.
Amanda Holden.
There was there were a lot of great things. We did a wonderful sketch which was 1066 meets 1966. So it was the Battle of Hastings, but done as if it were a football match. we got the remaining, what were then quite a few surviving members of the 66 squad out. We're all in Richmond Park with a whole reenactment society, and it was very very, very funny with Gary Lineker doing the commentary. Most hilarious. Where did I get to that? Can't remember.
Sketch shows in general.
Sketch
I think
shows in general.
except Monkey Trouser. I think, as you were saying earlier,
Yes.
Bob wanted to try and step away from acting and write, but the sketches in the all-star comedy show Stroke Monkey Trousers that work the best are with Jim and Bob in, like the astronauts, Bob's estate agent, and the Croc Botherer. But when other people are reading their lines, it I don't know, it doesn't quite work as well.
I think you're right, and I think that is a good reason for it. Just because they have such a different energy, they have just such a different take, and you either fit into that or you don't, or obviously somewhere in between. But it really shows the people who don't fit into that, and I don't think it's not being pejorative at all. I just think just some people just don't gel in that way within their world, and it's funny because you sort of thrust them together in a way that's slightly less than organic, and it's kind of an experiment in a way, it sort of sticks out like the proverbial sore thumb, as you say. No, they oh God, I've forgotten the name of the character we were basically taking the Mickey out of with Bob's crocodile.
Oh, Steve Irwin.
Yes,
Steve Irwin. Yeah,
the Steve Irwin take. That was joyous, and we got a real alligator out for the sketch we did, and closed off a little bit of parkland in a local park. We filmed that more or less all around Maidstone, where the production company was. And so, these animal wranglers bring this vehicle in, back it up, and the thing looks like a coffin comes out, and they take it down. We had to cordon off the whole area, obviously. But don't tell anyone what the hell we're doing, obviously. Yeah. They open this thing up, and they lift this crocodile out, and I mean they were surprisingly few. I'm tempted to say only two, but maybe it was three handlers for this thing. Bloody great crocodile. And the idea is that you keep it cold, it being a warm a reptile, you keep it cold, and is it the that way around? Oh, I've got to get this right, haven't I? There'll be people who know about these things. It was either you keep it warm to keep it sleepy, or you keep it cold to keep it sleepy. But it was temperature controlled. And then as the temperature shifts, the crocodile basically comes to life, as it were. And boy, did it come
remember
to
that
life.
Anytime you get attacked by a crocodile, you'll know how to.
Exactly. Well, I won't, you see, because I don't know which one is which.
Put a coat on it or not.
Yeah. It's not going to help me at all. Oh man, that was such good fun to film. It's those things where you kind of, you're doing something for the first time ever, and I guess that's one of the joys. I was saying how hard they are, but one of the joys of sketch comedy is it brings up so much. There's so many different things you find yourself doing. And I probably hadn't done much with Spacemen before, that sketch. And such like, but the Steve Irwin really stuck in my mind because obviously that was quite visceral with the real crocodile, but also just so stupidly simple and funny with the idea of his testicle hanging out. It's just in a way it's so puerile it shouldn't be funny, but it just absolutely is properly funny.
Great character. I am a freaking nightmare.
And there we are, as we were talking before, that's Bob in his element. You give him a character, give him something he can hide behind. And I think that's that's where he perhaps struggled with Catterick, was that it was just a little bit too like him, if you like, a little bit too normal.
Go back to Catterick briefly. Was there talk of a second series? I know Jim and Bob mentioned they'd love to have done one.
There wasn't at the time, and it sat on a shelf for an alarmingly long time before it went out. That was the thing that really bothered me. The BBC didn't put it out for. It was under a year, but it was, you know, a good 6 months or more. My memories maybe was 9 months. I guess, you know, if you're being self-effacing about it, it was so weird. It was so out there. You know, it's a Vic and Bob thing, and perhaps they were not at their most popular at that point in time. I don't know. I can't remember, but it just felt like we'd been, you know, slightly marginalised. And then
was it BBC Three? I think at the time.
Yeah,
first
that's right. And then, you know, it goes out, and you know, we feel like we've lost some momentum, and we definitely did want to do another one. We all loved it so much. And then, you know, I know that having listened to both of them talk about it and their fondness for it, and you know, I think they were a little bit kind of bemused why it never went any further either, because especially since it was so good. It was, you know, they were so good in it. And just, as I say, it just felt like the kind of perfect distillation of everything that they'd been doing. Felt like it had all been building towards Catterick, and it sort of exploded onto the screen. And I say that, of course, it didn't explode onto the screen on BBC Three as it was, or whatever. But you know, we got such good and continue to get such good feedback from it. And it obviously, particularly within the comedy fraternity as well. You know, the two things I've done that come up the most would be Catterick and Human Remains, that people cite as being, you know, kind of influential in whatever way.
Oh yeah, Human Remains. That was again. It just sort of appeared without much of a fanfare at the time. I suppose that they weren't big names at the time. Rob Brydon and Julia Davis.
No, they weren't. What was happening for Rob was that his series of shorts, Marion and Jeff, was taking off.
Yeah.
And that kind of put him on the map. And I think that did do the show a world of good, just in terms of just good publicity. And Julia had done obviously a lot of work with Steve Coogan, done the stage shows with him, and she'd been kind of, I would say, mentored-ish by Chris Morris as well. He can really taken her under his wing. So, you know, she was obviously an extraordinary talent as well. But the two of them coming together, that was fabulous. Just seeing them just take off.
Let's talk about some of the other people you've worked with in the comedy world. We mentioned Reese and Steve, and you've obviously joined them again with Psychoville and a few episodes of Inside No.9. I'm going to assume they're very different to working with Vic and Bob. Apparently, there's not much corpsing goes on their shows. Correct me if I'm wrong.
A bit more disciplined.
Very much more disciplined. It's a very different approach. No, you're absolutely right. They don't shoot from the hip, but like Vic and Bob, they are enormously collaborative. So a joy to work with from that aspect. They're very clear on what they do want, but they are never, very, very rarely completely wedded to it. And if they are, they'll always come up with references, and they go, you know, this is where this is coming from, and it's quite important that, you know. So I'll watch the relevant clip from a movie or the whole movie, whatever it is, you know, the reference. So I get it and I understand what it is we're trying to achieve. But on the whole, they love to get good people in and let them do what they do, which is just a joy from where I'm sitting. But yeah, disciplined, and yes, it's a sort of a general overall professionalism that they have, which is I mean that's kind of slightly more the way I work, although I try to fit in with whatever, you know, the kind of the vibe is, or the MO. It's kind of important for me as a director to do that, to get the best out of people. I think to get the best out of the collective us. Yeah, they're fantastic, and I would say, the work we did on Psychoville, I'm enormously proud of.
Like Dawn French on Psychoville, she was incredible.
Isn't she great? Isn't she wonderful?
Oh man,
yeah,
so good.
And I think that was around about the time she was beginning to take on straight roles and doing more drama, and we all kind of were being joyfully surprised at just what a wonderful actor she is, just generally. That was for me. But honestly, also, what a flipping joy, if you'll pardon the pun, to work with. She as Joy was a revelation in so many ways. But that for me was the real fun of it was just how much she loved working. She just shows up on set and she's so happy to be there. And she makes a point of buying treats for people and looking out for me. She's very mothering in that way, but mothering, not smothering. And just no airs or graces, no sides to it. Never saw her pull a hissy fit. If anyone's earned the right to do that, comedy royalty, she has, but she's not interested in it, and just does not bring that with her at all. Just such a fabulous woman.
And the Inside No.9 episode, Hurry Up and Wait, with the more caravan work. That's just one of the best. That's fantastic.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
More caravan work. Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was. That was interesting because we started that block, which includes the last night of the proms episode as well. We started that block and then ran into COVID, and we were shut down into probably about 3 days worth of filming proms. We had the caravan waiting in a barn to then move on and shoot after that was finished. So yeah, a year's hiatus before we came back to it. But yeah, that was a great episode shoot. So yeah, the caravan, because of the time of year, it was snowing outside. So we went down and shot the caravan park down South England somewhere. It was freezing but not snowing. I think the snow had cleared by that point because we shot all the caravan interiors first. Again, just such a joy working with the boys and their ability to come up with new stories again and again and again. And what they hate people who call them story. It's always another story with a twist. Because there's so much more than that, and they don't always hinge on a twist. There are some delicious and delightful twists and turns, but that's not what they are. In that way that short films are often just predicated on there's the twist, and it's sort of reductive and diminishing to say that. But just the fact that they come up with so many beautifully crafted, independent, standalone story after story after story, just what a talent.
Yeah, and now taking it to the stage.
Indeed.
Wow. Yes. I wonder. Is that coming soon to a theatre near us?
I think it's began, hasn't it?
It's been running in the West End. I think it's running till April.
Right. Well, you've jogged me. Now I've got to get to see it.
You need to get down there.
I need to get down there. Yes. So I've just been busy working on other things.
What about working with Steve Coogan? She did Dr. Terrible's House of Horrible, and Saxondale, which is another great sitcom.
So because I did Human Remains with his company, Baby Cow, I did something that I'd not ever done before. Was when we went to celebrate the screening of Human Remains, we went out for dinner afterwards. I think he took us out, and I made a point to say to him, "Look, I need you to know that I want to work with you. And I sort of don't care what it is, but you're one of my heroes." And I hope I didn't quite say as bluntly as that, but that was the gist of it. I just needed him to know that. And yes, then Dr. Terrible's House of Horrible came up, and I got the gig. Again, he is extremely collaborative. And very focused and very disciplined in his own way. And I say it's kind of, again, it's just everybody has their own kind of modus operandi, and his is peculiar, not necessarily peculiar to him, but it stands out in my experience. he just loves to keep working on the material all the time. So that includes right up through the evening before you're filming, and then on the day as well. So he'll still be trying things out and riffing on the day, which at first is a bit disarming, and it can be for cast members who aren't used to it, because he'll go into a riff as you're in a scene and just run a line again and again and again and try it out. And then when he's got it, he just sort of kind of expects everyone to carry on. Which of course, when you get into the groove, you do, and you're just watching, you're waiting for it, and it's like being on the starting line, waiting for the gun to go, bang, he's got it, right, on we go. But if you're not in the groove, it's disarming. Again, just go, man, you have earned the right to do it any way you like. Again, just another comedy genius.
Yeah. No, I saw him in Doctor Strangelove, the stage play.
Did you?
Oh,
yes.
Incredible.
Good.
He's just so incredible.
I can imagine.
And you can kind of see how Peter Sellers would have been a bit of a hero for him as well,
Well, he wanted to do that biopic. Can't remember who ended up doing it. The Australian actor.
Jeffrey Rush, was it?
Jeffrey Rush.
Oh, yeah.
Steve was really keen to do that. And as we were making Dr. Terribles, he came up with the character for the, forgotten the name of the episode, but where he's playing the Witchfinder General. And he said, I'm going to do a Sellers take on this. And that was his calling card. He was hoping that would catch the eye of the producers of the film. And it wasn't quite as Machiavellian as that, but that was kind of on his mind. And if you watch the character, you can see it. It's very, very much a take on Peter Sellers doing the character.
Yeah, and you did the David Walliams TV adaptations of his books.
Yes,
that's 4 of those, was it?
Yes, I did 4. They were great fun to make, and great to be working with David again after all those years coming back to fold. I really thoroughly enjoyed working with him and Matt, and I probably bonded with David a bit more than I did with Matt over when we were out. The last thing I shot with them as a the Little Britain team was the Christmas special, 2-part Christmas special, which we all shot out in Mallorca. And Matt being, fairly, what's the word? How do you put it? Not particularly happy, kind of roaming around the streets and having to put up with people recognizing him and all of that. And very, very much not into foreign food. I was quite keen to stay in the hotel.
Nightmare, yeah.
And then have what they wanted. Whereas David was mad for it, So I went out with him pretty much every night to go and get dinner, and then he would carry on from there down to Magaluf to go and party with the kids and just love being seen by everybody there. And he's just such a complete people person. Yeah. He was really loving it. So yeah, that was then the last time I'd worked with him, seen him really properly. But then to come back and do the adaptations with him was a real joy.
And we must talk about Ted Lasso. How did you get involved with that? Because it is obviously humongous.
Do you know, I think I kind of got lucky because it was something to do with the director that they had in mind not being available. And the producer director, this was of season 2, was Declan Lowney, very, very well-known and prolific comedy director, not British, Irish himself, but obviously done most of his work in Britain and England. Not Father Ted. He was working on the show and possibly when my name came up, I think was able to go, oh yeah, you should get Matt in. And so I think I just got lucky. And then he could not then go on and do the producer director role for the series 3. And I guess I'd made myself kind of useful enough for them to want to offer it to me. And yeah, ended up as producer director for all of series 3, which was just fantastic, an amazing job. And again, Jason Sudeikis, rather like Steve Coogan, has very, very much his own way of working, which takes a while to get your head around. He's from an improv background, famously, and kind of honing his skills, particularly at SNL, and where they are famously fast and loose, changing things on the day, writing sketches right up to the last minute, and then improving even within the sketches. And he loves that. He loves playing fast and loose. So translate that to a multi-million-dollar TV series, and it gets kind of interesting, where it's kind of round peg, square hole. You've got a schedule that is very demanding and, deadlines to hit. And he's kind of like, yeah, but I don't want to do it that way. I don't want to do it this way. And by the time you're in series 3 and you've delivered Apple a very, very big hit show, everyone's kind of like, okay, we'll do it your way, Jason, So he got to, I think, hopefully for him, a really nice place where he was, given a full and free mandate to do it the way he wanted to.
Yeah. No, I think I first discovered Jason on SNL years ago, on with Bill Hader and all those guys.
Right. Yeah.
And then when he got the Ted Lasso gig, everyone was kind of like, oh, this could be really interesting. Let's see what happens with it. And it just grew and grew and grew.
Yeah.
It was perfect for him,
No, it was. I remember I was working with Nick Mohammed when he got the gig.
Oh, wow.
And he told me about it. And I honestly said, I wouldn't bet the chair from the kitchen of my house on that, let alone the house.
Yeah.
It's just like, a fish out of water story set in the world of football. Oh God, really? I just thought, no, not a chance. And then lo and behold, I got the phone call. Was I interested in doing a block on season 2? And I had to watch it because I hadn't even watched it. And I started watching it, and within 2 episodes, I was hooked. And I'm like, oh man, this is really good. I can see what all the fuss is about.
There's a thing with streaming services nowadays. Obviously, there's a lot of content getting made, and if something flops, it sort of disappears without trace. They swipe it under the carpet.
Yes.
But if something goes big, it goes big.
Yes.
Like Ted Lasso, like Afterlife, like Squid Games. I mean, it's huge. How has the industry changed since you started? Just the terrestrial channels, I guess.
Well, that's the big change, isn't it? It's the amount of outlets there are now, and obviously with that, certainly up until the writer's strike in America, just an enormous amount of content. Well, I think the strike has allowed all of certainly the streamers anyway to have a rethink. There's a big tightening of belts, and the amount of content is going to be reduced drastically. I think they rightly recognise that it should not be, doesn't need to be all about the amount of output, and that that can be reined back. And hopefully that translates to better quality. But the problem is that off the back of that explosion, it increased the size of production everywhere, and with that, the whole community that are part of it. And we spent 5 years just growing and growing. Obviously, COVID kind of was its own strange little dent in all of it, but the general trend was getting bigger and bigger. And now that this sudden reductions happened, there's a lot of people out of work, a lot more people out of work. What's really fascinating is that right now, comedy in this country is on its knees. Really, really on its knees. Whether you pick that up from other people you've been speaking to, or got a sense of it yourself, but comedy commissioning is down to its lowest ebb since I've been in the industry. At a time when I would argue we need comedy more than ever, and specifically half-hour comedies, which depending on what it is that you're stories you're telling, half-hour comedy is a very special and particular sort of genre. And the idea that we don't want. I mean, the problem it's monetary. The problem is that the particularly the production companies who are trying to make a living, they can't sell it, not in a way that makes them any money.
Yeah.
So there's your bottom line is your bottom line. It's all about the money.
Yeah. If you can do a comedy drama with an issue, which is no bad thing, not saying those shows shouldn't exist, but that will sell, I think, in a minute more than a half-hour comedy, which might just be silly for silly's sake, and that's his selling point.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. Exactly that. And we were just finishing a show with Sky, and I know for a fact that Sky were just on the verge of closing down the comedy department as such, rather merging it, shall we say, with drama, and not commissioning any more half-hour comedies at all, just concentrating on comedy dramas in the hour format. Now that hasn't happened, but they were very much on the verge of it. So things are.
They were doing like this, the Sky Shorts, weren't they? Up until recently, like the Johnny Vegas and Mike Wozniak and all those guys that were doing the shorts for Sky.
That's right.
There's I think there's a market for it, but it's.
Well, I guess they would beg to differ. It's very hard to know these things, but that they're obviously well positioned to know what's selling, I just term loosely, what people are watching and what they're not. With the technology now, it's pretty easy to know exactly what your viewing figures are. So I just don't get it. That's the thing. I just don't understand, because in a world that's kind of going slightly mad, the need for some pure escapism and some light relief is enormous. It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's even like the rise of reality TV just bewilders me. A lot of it. Yeah. You're kind of like, why?
Cheaper, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, definitely that. But who knew it was going to be as popular? When
it take one person to make a silly half-hour TV show that goes really popular, then they'll decide that that's the thing, because that's obviously popular. We'll make imitations of that. Yeah.
No, I mean it is a fickle industry, and always chasing the tail of whatever the last hit was. And I guess to some extent that's brings us back around to sketch comedy, and someone's going to take a punt on a sketch show, and if that was to break out, then suddenly they'll come back into fashion and they'll be everywhere. But right now it's difficult times for everybody, but very particularly for comedy.
Looking through your CV, obviously there's a lot of stuff that I'd forgotten about. Is there anything that you were proud of that you think probably didn't receive the attention that it should have done? I mean, This Is Ginsey. I've completely forgot about that show. That was something else.
Well, that's it. That's the very one.
Oh, incredible.
That's the very show that I would cite to anybody. And I would urge anybody, who is interested in really out there quirky comedy, to watch Ginsey. It's an extraordinary show. In fact, I've just got an email today about getting back together with the boys.
Oh wow!
We've been trying to get things off the ground since then. It's a bit of a curse when you produce something that's that out there. I think people are slightly afraid of it, because it's so of its own thing, and its own, obviously, of its own world. It's so unique. Yeah, it just seems like they're reticent to kind of commission them to do anything else. Whereas I think they have so much more in them. Wonderful show, and amazing what we achieved on what was no more than a very, very basic kind of band 2 sitcom budget.
It's, as you say, every 10 years they say one of these shows will appear that completely changes the landscape. You had the Goons, which is a Python, Young Ones, Vic and Bob, Mighty Boosh, and This Is Ginzy probably was in that bracket. And perhaps if we did live in a world where we just had the 3 TV channels,
that's a good point. That's a very good point. I hadn't really thought of it like that. I think you're probably right. Just kind of gets lost in all the noise of other shows, but also bless them, Sky getting behind it, and that was Lucy Lumsden particularly. I had enormous respect for her already. She was over at the BBC before, and she commissioned the pilot for Gincy back at the BBC, and then when she came over to Sky, she sort of brought it with her effectively, and commissioned the series, and then series 2, quite extraordinary. And this is a time when Sky's other comedy output were shows like Trolleyed, which were just starting off, which were very, very much more mainstream.
Yeah,
it was properly out there. So hats off to them for that. But of course, it's Sky, and you although viewing figures have been coming down for everybody, Sky's viewing figures certainly back then were not big, and we were probably lucky if we were getting 500,000 people watching, on the best night. Not enough people.
So there's been talk for a while, and we mentioned it a few times on this podcast, that Vic and Bob supposedly going to be making a film called The Glove, which they've been talking about for the best part of who knows how many years. So if you get the phone call tomorrow, Matt, are you in? You're going to direct that for them?
I probably wouldn't even need to read the script.
No, that's it. Get on there.
I just go, yep, I'm there. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm in.
Just for the chance to work with them again. I think, I just about don't care what it is. It would be a joy. And we're what are we talking about? This 20-year anniversary? Are we at?
Yeah.
I think that's right. Since Catterick.
Yeah.
It's about time. Let's make it the before we hit the what is 25 years? The Jubilee.
Let's make it happen.
Come on. Let's start a campaign, people.
Let's start a campaign. You heard it here.
We all love fishing. We all love painting, bird watching, but we need a bit of Jim and Bob doing that, don't we?
We do. We absolutely do. Need to see them back on the screen being silly again.
Definitely.
Yeah. Anything else in the pipeline you can?
Yeah. What are you up to, Matt?
Nothing specifically. I mean, the Lasso is gearing up for season 4. Which I may well be involved in.
Is this official? Is this officially?
Well, they're working on it. They're writing it.
Wow, it's crazy, isn't it? After they were saying no, that's it now, and the way it ended, obviously.
Yes. Yes. Well, never say never. But
wow.
I think they've come up with a clever way to
amazing. You've made me very happy. You made my day anyway, Matt, saying that.
Mm-hmm.
It could all fall apart in the writing room. You never know. Anything can happen. It's showbiz.
That's true. That's true.
It's showbiz. But no, meanwhile, I have very boldly and probably slightly stupidly set my sights on making a movie. Obviously, I'd love to do it with Vic and Bob, but with somebody. So yes, I'm sort of attached to a few projects. World of Movies is struggling, particularly sort of independent movies at the moment. Very, very hard to sell them. But I'd love to do that. Listen, I'm always just looking for the next challenge, and whatever that might be. But that it strikes me as it's sort of where I started. I went to film school. I thought I was going to come out and make feature films, and that clearly didn't happen. But I've literally zero regrets. I've been incredibly happy and very, very lucky in my career. But I thought, well, maybe my name up on a big screen once would be nice.
Bit of go back to sculpting.
Well, that's what I can do in my retirement. That's about, but 100%.
That could be it. That could 100%.
Be it. Yeah, I would love that. I need to work on my shed a bit more.
But thanks so much for joining us today, Matt. That was quite a boast.
Matt. Thank you so much.
And,
absolute pleasure.
Thank you for all the fantastic TV that you've helped bring us over the years.
Oh, mate, that's why I do it. That's wonderful to hear. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you all for listening to this edition of Boast. Special thanks to Matt Lucas for permission to use the Peanuts music as our theme tune, and thanks to Ed Lewis for this edit. Thank you to Jake Chesham for permission to use the photo from his 1995 shoot of Jim and Bob in our various online locations for the podcast. And of course, thank you very much to Jim Moyer and Bob Mortimer, without whom this podcast, well, it just wouldn't exist, would it? Remember to check out Paula's Divine Comedians podcast as well, and to join the Reeves Mortimer Depository of Curious Stuff Facebook group. And I think you'll agree that really was a lot of fun. Goodbye.